In January, the Home Secretary said the government would conduct 5 local inquiries into the rape gangs which have terrorised so many innocent children. Over 3 months since the government announced these local inquiries, Tom Crowther KC, a barrister invited by the Home Office to help establish them, knows almost nothing about their progress.
My blood is absolutely boiling today. I am so angry to see that the Labour Party have basically completely abandoned their plans to have 5 inquiries in local areas. Okay, they didn't give us a national inquiry. They gave us 5 local inquiries, which you thought was pathetic enough rather than going for the full bang. But they can't even be bothered with the 5 local ones anymore. They've just decided, you know what, grooming gangs is not trending in the news like it was in January, so we'll just slide it under the carpet and forget about it. The Labour Party do not give a toss about the young white British girls in this country who were raped and abused.
Neither do we. Why is the framework for local inquiries now being led by ministers rather than by independent voices such as Tom Crowther? Why is the £5 million set aside for inquiries no longer being allocated but instead delivered on an opt-in basis? And what does the government intend to do about local leaders who say there is no need for an independent inquiry, like in Bradford or in Wales? The girls we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, are predominantly white. The men who preyed on them were predominantly Muslim, generally either from Pakistan or of Pakistani heritage. One of the victims from Dewsbury was told by her rapist, I quote, "We're here to fuck all the white girls and fuck the government."
It's just absolutely beyond belief. You can watch the rest of that clip on Twitter where Katie Lamb goes through some horrifying horror stories of grooming gang abuse. But let's take a look at the details of what has changed in Labour's position today. So a few details in Charlie Peters' GB News article here. Labour has dropped plans for grooming gang inquiries, making the announcement on the final day before Parliament breaks up for Easter recess. Oh, how convenient you waited until the day before Easter recess to tell everybody. And apparently they only gave people 45 minutes notice of this change of plans so that they didn't have much time to prepare their opposition. How convenient. Just so that you don't have any scrutiny, we'll just tell everyone right before everyone's about to leave for Easter break, so there's no time for them to oppose us. Just absolutely pathetic. They are just hiding from scrutiny, this Labour Party. In January, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper announced £5 million to fund 5 local inquiries into grooming abuse gangs, but today it has been updated to a flexible £5 million fund. What does this mean? Instead of funding 5 locally led inquiries, Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said they would back locally led work on grooming gangs, and Charlie's tweet kind of explains this a little bit more. In January, Labour said that Tom Crowther KC would be appointed to develop a framework for locally led inquiries. Now it's revealed that Crowther is not developing the framework and that local inquiries have been abandoned. The Oldham inquiry is still going ahead as it was confirmed in January. The government was expected to announce the further 4 locations before Easter, but now it has announced a watered down approach which includes alternatives to inquiries. Now the really big issue here, guys, is that you haven't got anybody, not only do you have no statutory powers that you would have in a national statutory inquiry, but compared to what Labour was originally proposing, this means you haven't got anyone independent, forcing these local councils to have inquiries and making sure that they are held to account. But you know, you haven't got that independence, right? And the issue with this is really well highlighted in this video here from Robbie Moore MP.
I have to say that I am completely infuriated by today's statement. Yes. Here we are on the very last sitting day before the Easter recess, and the government have all but admitted that no real progress whatsoever has been made on their promise to launch 5 local rape gang inquiries before Easter. But it gets worse than that, Madam Deputy Speaker. For more than 5 years, leaders at the very top of Bradford Council in my constituency have denied, refused and covered up the very single call that I, and indeed victims, survivors and their families, have been making for a full rape gang inquiry across Keighley and the wider Bradford district. Yet the Minister and this government refuses to face the facts. Bradford's leadership is simply not going to act by themselves. So I ask the Minister, why is this government letting the very councils that failed victims decide whether they want to be investigated or not?
And that is the crux of the problem, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why we have not had justice, the reason why we haven't had the local inquiries, and to the extent necessary, in some of the worst areas, is because the councils, they don't want to hand themselves in. Right? They don't want to show themselves up and show how corrupt they are, right? The reason why Oldham is getting an inquiry is because that has flipped and is no longer, it's now in Tory power. It's no longer in Labour's hands. So the Tories have been able to force there to be a local inquiry. When it was Labour, they didn't want anything to do with an inquiry. Surprise, surprise. And this new system that Jess Phillips is announcing, as opposed to what Yvette Cooper announced back in January, basically says to councils, yeah, there is a pot of money that you can ask for a bit from if you want to run your own inquiry, but there's not going to be any, it's not going to be an independent inquiry. It's not going to be forced upon you. So it's up to you guys if you want to investigate yourselves. Who on a Labour-run council is going to say, yeah, we want to investigate ourselves? Almost nobody, and quite clearly that is the case in Bradford, as this MP has clearly shown. But wait till you see Jess Phillips' response to this, because it's pathetic.
And when will this government step up, use their statutory powers, and give the victims and the survivors in areas like Keighley and the wider Bradford district the full inquiry that they've wanted now for almost 2 decades?
Minister.
It's unbelievable.
First and foremost, I want to say to the honourable gentleman that I'm going to give him some absolute credit as being somebody who has, for years, spoken up about this issue.
Always start with a compliment before you disappoint someone.
I'm surprised that we've not had closer conversations. As the first thing I would say is I would very much welcome, and I think it is actually being arranged from letters that he has sent to me, some time with the honourable gentleman to understand exactly what is going on in his local area, and I will be more than happy to sit down. And there is absolutely nothing that I am saying today that suggests that Bradford wouldn't be able to access funding from the Home Office, just as Oldham has, to undertake the work that might be needed in Bradford, and I would very much welcome a conversation with him about that.
Oh my God, is she stupid? Did she not listen to a word that he said? Jess Phillips there, she says, oh no, don't worry, there's nothing stopping Bradford from getting the funding that they would need if they want to do an inquiry. Did you not listen? Bradford Council, they do not want an inquiry. They're not going to they're not going to ask for your money. They don't want to be investigated because they'll be shown up for being complicit and being, involved in the cover-up. Labour councillors will be shown as being involved in the cover-up of the mass rape of young girls, right? That's the problem, Jess. Did you not listen to a word that he said? Sorry about my dog bouncing around, making noise. Let's just look at a couple of tweets before we finish. I'm absolutely seething about this, to be honest. It's likely Labour shut down the Grooming's inquiry because the trail risks leading straight back to their own party and its associates. The Labour Party are on borrowed time. And Samantha Smith, who's one of the rape gang survivors, she says Keir Starmer has quietly killed the government's 10 million quid plan for 5 local inquiries into child sexual exploitation across Britain. I said it then and I'll say it again. I will never vote Labour. It is just absolutely shocking stuff, is it? I think this is an absolute betrayal, not just to the victims of grooming gangs, but to the people up and down across this country who are begging for a proper investigation into this. We were given just a little, a tiny nugget of hope that we would have these 5 local inquiries taking place. It wasn't exactly what we wanted. It wasn't a national inquiry, but we thought, you know what, there's a little win. We got something from Labour. We forced Yvette Cooper to offer something to get a little bit of justice. They've just ditched it. They literally cannot be bothered. They literally do not care. They are more interested in saving face. They're more interested in protecting Labour's reputation and making sure that no Labour councillors get exposed than they are getting justice for girls up and down across this country who have been abused in the most horrific ways. You guys, I'm sure, will have heard the accounts of some of the court documents and whatnot. It is disgusting. I think that it is just morally completely unacceptable the way these politicians are behaving. Jess Phillips should be ashamed of herself. Yvette Cooper should be ashamed of herself. Keir Starmer should be ashamed of himself. Anyway, I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you very much for watching this video. Subscribe to the Reason channel if you've not already.